Hello, Paulo Leite here, record collector. Recently I posted a video about my visit to Decatur CDs and Vinyl, a great record shop located in Decatur, Georgia, USA. The link is at the top of your screen right now, and they do have a very nice collection. And I did some awesome shopping there that I want to share with you. And take these videos that I make as suggestions for albums and artists I think you should discover or rediscover. Starting with, this is heavy. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967, by the Beatles. Now, this is the super deluxe box that was released by Universal Music several years ago. And it contains 4 CDs with tons of stuff, amazing stuff by the Beatles, and a Blu-ray disc with the album in multi-channel, plus lots of more great stuff about the Beatles. And you know, when it comes to these boxes, I'm sure every Beatles fan will agree, we never have enough of Beatles. So every time there is a new recording, a new version, a new outtake, a new something, we jump on it with our wallets open, ready to bleed money to Universal Music's pockets. How about that? And it's funny that this was a gap in my collection. Well, not exactly a gap. This box was a gap in my collection because I actually had the album several times before. I started buying in the 80s when this came up, so this is the first edition that came on CD of Sgt. Pepper's. For years, this was all I could listen to, all of us could listen to. And then they released the remasters, and I knew I had to buy everything again, so I bought the big box with all the albums remastered. And then when EMI was sold to Universal Music, of course Universal Music did the right thing and re-released everything again in these deluxe boxes, super deluxe boxes with tons of more stuff. And I remember in the 90s when we had the Anthology series, those CDs gave us a glimpse of all that could be made with the huge number of recordings that the Beatles made during the 60s. And you know, us fans, we are very hard to please because we are always looking for more Beatles stuff because they were amazing, they were brilliant. That's all that I can say. So this is a great buy. Next, and keeping up with the Beatles spirit, Let It Be Guitar. Joel Patterson plays the Beatles. 2019 by Joel Patterson. Now this is a guitar album. I never heard about this album before. I was shooting at the shop and I saw this one and I asked around and everybody told me, oh, this is a very good album. And indeed it is. So it's a beautiful album with a gorgeous selection of Beatles songs. Now Joel Patterson, I heard him before. I listened to a few tracks from previous albums before and I was very impressed. He's an amazing musician. He released a second Beatles album in 2020 called Let It Be Acoustic Guitar, where he plays a different selection of Beatles songs on solo guitar. And both albums are beautiful. I already listened to the other one and I plan to buy it sometime in the future. But this one is beautiful, so I think everybody should discover this or rediscover this one. Now, it's funny that Chet Atkins, the legendary country guitarist, he released in 1966 an album titled Chet Atkins Picks on the Beatles. And that album is a classic. It's a beautiful album. It's one of my favorite country albums and one of my favorite albums on the Beatles. People compared that album to this one or this one to that one. And yeah, there are similarities, but they're very different in terms of sound because here Joe Patterson, he plays different guitars, a different set of musicians, a different number of musicians, different configuration of the band. So it sounds differently. However, if you know Chet Atkins' album and you like it, oh, you're going to love this one. So this is a beautiful album. Actually, and also more interestingly, this album was recorded in mono. So if you check the back of the album, there is right here, it says that this album is not available on stereo. And I confess I was a little bit weary when I saw that this was a mono album. I said, WTF. However, this is so beautiful, so well recorded, and the musicians are so good that it doesn't really matter. So if it is, it doesn't really matter if it's stereo or mono. It sounds gorgeous. So try it. I know you're gonna like it. So great buy. Next, I have for you a twofer. The Poet Part 1, 1981 by Bobby Womack, and The Poet Part 2, 1984. Now, these two albums are gorgeous, and I specifically love the first one because to me it represents a wonderful bridge in terms of sound between the soul sound from the 70s and the sound of the 80s. Bobby Womack here has an incredible array of musicians, starting with James Gadson, the legendary drummer who played with tons of people. He played Diana Ross's Love Hangover. He played that beautiful Bill Withers song, Use Me, which to me is one of the best drumming tracks ever. So it's not a drumming track, but it has beautiful drums in it. And I think it's one of the best drumming ever in pop music or soul music. And that's James Gadson. Also, Nathan East on bass. Nathan East is a great bass player. I would say another legendary bass player. He recorded more than 200 albums from beautiful musicians. And he was also a member of Foreplay, a quartet of jazz musicians who recorded several albums during the 90s with Lee Ritenour, I think. And most of their albums are awesome. So, yeah, great people here. Dorothy Ashby on the harp. She is a brilliant musician that people should rediscover. David T. Walker on the guitar. He played lots of Motown. He played Let's Get It On with Marvin Gaye. He played Inner Visions, the classic Stevie Wonder album. Also, Stepping Into Tomorrow, Donald Byrd, beautiful album. So, great legendary guitar player. Last but not least, Paulinho da Costa on percussion, another musician that I worship. So, amazing people here. On the second album, The Poet Part 2, he brings Patti LaBelle to sing with him. They sing together a couple of tracks, and she's always amazing. So, this is a great buy. Next, I have for you another classic, Eat a Peach, 1972, by the Allman Brothers Band. Now, this album is important because it was the last one to feature Duane Allman, who tragically died in, I think, a motorcycle accident during the production of this album. This was originally released on 2 LPs, and it's interesting because there is a track here, there is a recording here called Mountain Jam that was a jam session recorded live that clocks in 33 minutes. So it's a very long track, and it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. And on the original LPs, this was split in half across 2 sides of the LPs. I think side B and side D. And it's a beautiful track. And it's funny that this on the CD we have it for the first time on one single track with 33 minutes. And it's interesting because it is one of the ways in which the CD format superseded vinyl as a format. Finally, we no longer have the constraints of 20 minutes per side like with vinyl. And finally, for the first time on CDs, we have the full track in one just single track. So it's a beautiful album that everybody should discover. This was produced by Tom Dowd, a legendary record producer he was born, I think, in 1925. He participated at the Manhattan Project as a physicist, I think, and then he went into the music business. And he became one incredibly important record producer who produced tons of albums and artists. So this is a great buy. Next, I have for you another classic, Atlantic Crossing, 1975 by Rod Stewart. By the way, another album produced by Tom Dowd. Now, this album marks, I think, the last time when Rod Stewart records with his old bandmates from Faces. From now on, he's going to record with lots of different musicians, and his sound is going to change dramatically. On this album, I think this album was recorded in several different studios, including the legendary Muscle Shoals Studios, the home of Booker T and the MGs. And they played many of the tracks here, and they infused the album with a soulful sound that is very welcomed. And it's interesting that the album has 2 sides that are very different. The first side is very rocky. The second side, side B, is more mellow. I think this was a suggestion of Rod Stewart's girlfriend at the time. Go figure. Great buy. Next, I have for you yet another classic, Street Survivors, 1977, by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Now, this album is important because it was the last one before the tragic plane crash that killed several members of the band. Now, this album was released on October 17th, 1977, And 3 days later, on October 20th, 1977, the band had the infamous plane crash. That gave birth to an urban myth around the cover. By the way, this is not the original cover of the album. The original cover has a photograph of the band members engulfed in flames. And the people started saying that, the ones who died were the ones who were engulfed in the flames. But it's silly because on the original cover, all of the band is engulfed in flames. So, and not all of them died, thank God. And Ronnie Van Zant had an amazing voice, and it's sad that he died in the crash. And God knows what contributions he would have made had he lived. This is also the only contribution of Steve Gaines, a guitarist who joined the band for this album. And he also died in the plane crash with his sister, who I think was a backup singer for the band. A tragic event, obviously. But interesting enough, this album was recorded twice. So the first time it was produced by Tom Dowd also. But 5 months later, or 4 months later, the band re-recorded the entire album. And that was the version that was released commercially. Funny enough, Universal Music released several years ago a special version of this album with the original cover and a second CD with the Tom Dowd production, so with both versions of the album. I like it very much. I like songs from different productions. Some songs I prefer from the original release. Some songs I prefer the version Tom Dowd produced. There are some differences between them. A couple of songs are slower, a couple of songs are a little bit longer, but not much. This is a beautiful album that everybody should rediscover. Great buy. Oh, interesting. Dwayne Allman died during the production of Eat a Peach. And Lynyrd Skynyrd were involved in a plane crash after the release of Street Survivors. And both albums were produced by Tom Dowd. Just saying. Next, and last but not least, I have for you another classic, Slow Hand, 1977 by Eric Clapton. Now, this album was released roughly a month after Street Survivors. And no, it was not produced by Tom Dowd. This one was produced by Glyn Johns, a legendary British record producer who recorded lots of stuff with lots of people. He was a legendary producer, of course. And actually, it's interesting because he pioneered the technique of using 3 or 4 microphones to record the drums, specifically having in mind a stereo mix of that recording. People may not know exactly, but during the 60s, when stereophonic sound started to become more popular, there was this practice in the industry of splitting the sound of the band between the 2 channels, which resulted, for example, on the drums being recorded and put only on one channel and the rest of the band on a different channel. I never liked those recordings, and you can spot those on some early Beatles recordings that were originally recorded and mixed in mono and later released in stereo. Sometimes you have Ringo's drums just on one channel, and it sounds very strange to me. I never liked that kind of recording because to me it sounds like I'm listening to 2 channels and both of them are lacking something. And I think Glyn Johns was the first one who understood this, and he developed his technique in order to get the drums with more presence on both channels. He developed his technique based on that. So he's incredibly important. He's an incredibly important producer. Not just because of that, he did lots of great stuff, but also because of that. Also, this album contains great songs like Lay Down Sally, Wonderful Tonight, and Cocaine, the great song that was written by J.J. Cale, and it became a hit song for Eric Clapton. So this is a great buy. Now, just an afterthought. Whenever I buy records, I'm usually interested in knowing who produced them, who played in them, because many times you get a lot of information about those people behind the albums. And to me, that adds another layer of appreciation for the work of art that these people produce. It enhances the pleasure that I get from listening to these albums. Many times when you listen to a record and you know the players, the musicians, the songwriters, the producers, you start to understand not only how records are produced, but also the points of contact between different artists and different songs. And to me, that is incredibly stimulating as a record collector and a music lover. So I always try to understand and to know who were the producers, who were the songwriters, who were the musicians. And I would suggest that you start doing that too. Look into your collection and pick up your favorite albums and see who produced them or who played in them. You're going to be surprised about the people who participated on different albums and you had no idea. And here we have it. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967, by the Beatles, the Super Deluxe box. Let It Be Guitar, Joe Patterson Plays the Beatles, 2019, by Joe Patterson. The Poet, Part 1, 1981, by Bobby Womack, and The Poet, Part 2, 1984. Eat a Peach, 1972, by the Allman Brothers Band. Atlantic Crossing, 1975, by Rod Stewart. Street Survivors, 1977, by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Slow Hand, 1977, by Eric Clapton. And please remember, visit record shops, buy records. Music is life. Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. There's more great content coming soon. Thank you.